Hey guys, what is up? So, as most of you probably know, if you've watched my recent videos, this month is Mental Health Awareness and Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome Awareness Month. So, with that being said, I have both mental health issues as well as Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and I did a video on the first video on Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, kind of just giving you basic information on what is it and the different comorbidities that kind of come along with it. So if you haven't seen that video, definitely go check it out. Today we are going to talk about mental health. So mental health is a spectrum of different things. Now let's go over something. I believe that most mental health issues are there because of some sort of chemical imbalance, and ways for our body to cope. So you have everywhere from you have autism, you have anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, all so many different things. Generalized anxiety disorder, OCD, PTSD, the list just goes on and on and on. Agoraphobia, arachnophobia, I mean, you name it. Now, things like depression and anxiety, we've discovered do have a lot to do with the chemicals that your body releases and things like that, because a lot of people have success with medication. I'm not saying that medication is the only answer. There are a lot of people who do it a more natural way, who change their eating habits, who change other aspects of their lifestyle, and they do great. There's nothing wrong with not taking medications, but some people have to, and I am one of those people who is not quite ready to be completely off. So I've always told myself that once I learn to kind of cope with it, then I can try to go off my meds, but until I'm to a good place, it's really not a good idea. So what is it like to deal with mental health? So you have a psychologist, a psychiatrist. Psychologist is the one that will do therapy with you, kind of do CBT, DBT, EMDR, all that kind of stuff. And we can talk about different types of therapy later. There's different types and different types of therapy that work for different cases, if that makes sense. What works for one person may not necessarily work for the other, I have tried CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, several different times, and I had some luck with it, but I kind of hit a rut. So now I'm doing EMDR, which was really hard to do in quarantine because there's a lot of sensory input that goes into that. So mental health isn't necessarily something that you can just snap out of and get control of. A lot of people want to tell other people, we'll just stop worrying, we'll just let it go, just be happy, this will pass, you just have to push through, and sometimes it's not that simple. There are real issues at hand, so we have to kind of look at that as a whole. I'm doing a really bad job, I don't know. Sorry, you guys. So it affects so many different people, so many, and yet it is so frowned on, shamed in our society, and everyone knows someone who's struggled with, even if it's just a little bit anxiety, for example, or depression, or somebody who's struggled with it, whether you realize it or not, you know. And so it's really important for all of us to just make sure that we're available for others and that we know the resources. And I have made a video previously on resources, but I will go over it again in another video when we kind of touch on the different disorders, you know. But anyways, so yes, mental health can be just as important as physical health. If you're not mentally prepared for things, then you just won't go in a positive direction. For example, there are studies that show like people who get transplants, if that isn't what they actually wanted, their body rejects it. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying like that's 100% of the time, but yeah, that is the case some of the time. Like, your body responds to that. There's actually a book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's just about how your mental health is really reflected in your physical health. And it's so true. It's so true. I have passed out from anxiety and like thrown up from anxiety and things like that are just like, that's not really what you think of when you think of having anxiety. You think of like this panic state, not necessarily being physically ill, but being kind of trapped, you know, in your own head. And that's just not always the case. So you guys, I'm gonna cut it off here because I feel like I'm maybe just rambling at this point. But yes, mental health is just as important as your physical health. Do not be afraid to reach out. If you have any questions or you need someone to talk to, reach out to me. I'm happy to help you in whatever way I can, and find you resources in your area, because that is honestly the key. There are places where they have free clinics and stuff like that, so resources are there. You just have to know where to look, and I'm more than happy to help you guys find those. So anyways, thank you for watching. Happy Mental Health Awareness Month. Bye.